Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everybody, it's Debbie Potts, the host of The Whole Athlete, and I have a guest co-host on the show today, Mr. Brad Kearns of Get Over Yourself podcast is going to talk shop with me. Hi, Brad.
Debbie Potts, it is such a pleasure to reconnect, and we are pretty good at doing this regularly and getting out this great content. I think you have an incredible niche offering or message, and that is, the speaking for the athlete that's done the very best they could to be healthy and fit and reach goals and train with devotion and not be a fat, lazy slob on the couch, but in many ways ending up at the same unfortunate destination as the person who could give a crap about their health. And that's that situation where we're pushing ourselves too hard, we're too driven, too focused, too goal-oriented, and we become our own worst enemy and end up on the familiar destination of burnout. So the more we can talk about this, and I think, I see you as one of the leading experts on the scene here because you have lived through that journey yourself, which is vastly more relevant than someone who's studied the stress hormone flows in a chemistry course or whatever. I mean, so you have to go out there and kind of go through that experience, just like I did with my career racing at the elite level in triathlons and getting so much pain and frustration and psychological disturbances from trying my hardest and then not winning, in fact, doing worse, and then having to go home and recalibrate. So off we go into the journey, and hopefully, getting the message absorbed by people who deserve to hear it and might be able to, listen and change course rather than having to learn everything the hard way. That's what I tell my kids anyway. Like, listen, man, I'm telling you something. Don't do it. Yeah.
Well, that's what, we're going to talk about today is how stress impacts the whole you from the inside out. And that's why 5 years ago, I created the holistic method and talking about that just to excel in sports, but in daily life, we need to focus not just what we eat, but how we eat, not just exercising more. More is better to be super fit, athletic performer and be the best in your age group if you're racing events, but also the sleep and stress impacts everything as we're getting into, but digestion and mobility, movement, the brain health, the gut health, and hydration. And then most of all, I think impacts all of it is happiness and gratitude, playing and being silly and laughing. And I think those are parts that I want to share more on this podcast. In my new Thursday episode, I'm doing Real Thoughts with Debbie Potts now, that life is not a race, it is a journey, that we need to work on all these different elements, not just eating, as we'll get into too. I want to talk about all these people getting more interest, which is great, into eating low carb and getting into ketosis, but all these other factors can have an influence on our ability to burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance. And we're always looking at overall longevity, improve the aging process.
Wait, did you come up with that? Real Thoughts with Debbie Potts? That's brilliant.
A bike ride.
A bike ride. How about that? The brain is firing in and having breakthroughs out there. And I think that's very common. People solve problems when they're walking, biking, jogging, whatever it is.
So my book, Life is Not a Race, was mostly written in my head on my bike rides. I go on, so I like my Tuesday, Thursday bike rides by myself, and I would see the sign on the side of the road says slow down. The speed limit sign, that's where I got all these ideas from and generated, images off stock photos you can buy. I'm like, that's what it is. Speed limit, stop, slow down, a speed bump on the road. And I'd stop, pull over and type a note in my phone and go ride. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had these aha moments. But for me, my bike ride is that oh my gosh, clarity, focus. You're not interrupted by doing 10 things on my computer trying to open up Skype today. It's like emails, Outlook, all this stuff is just all over the place. But when you're outside in a happy place where you can think clearly and get rid of those distractions and focus, it's amazing what comes to your mind.
Oh my gosh, you've set us up with so many interesting thoughts there. And the one that's kind of on my mind lately is all these things you just stated were pretty obvious, and the listener can nod their head. It's not like a surprise revelation that gratitude is important and being happy and playful and having fun contribute to a healthy, balanced life. But what I'm seeing is a tremendous amount of head nodding and then getting sucked into this vortex of modern life where we can't walk our talk. We know it's important to smile and laugh and be happy and have fun and sit down and have quiet, relaxing meals where we chew each bite 20 to 30 times instead of 2 to 4 times. We know better in almost every way and every step that we take. We know about the influence of excess artificial light and digital stimulation after dark and how bad that is for our hormones and our fat burning goals and all these things. So there's some, what would you call it? Like there's some log jam here with these super ass smart modern humans, especially health enthusiasts who are listening to the show. If you're not listening to the show, listen to the damn show and start paying attention to this stuff. But our audience, we can make the assumption that people have heard these concepts before, have talked about them, reasoned with them, maybe even tried them out here and there where, yeah, I went on a camping trip and we went to sleep every night at 9 o'clock and it was great. And I woke up with the sunrise and felt full of energy and did my yoga and everything was locked into place during this departure from everyday life. So I'd love to figure out how we can get past these log jams and do things that make us feel better. We know they make us feel better, but somehow they keep slipping away every single day. And my personal frailty here is that distractibility component when we're engaging with the internet and digital hyperconnectivity all day. Because I'm, as you know, I've been trying to write books as my main, my main contribution to the economy, to society is writing books and producing content. I have podcasts, books, digital educational courses, whatever. So you need to be in this peak performance focus frame of mind, but I have my email inbox that's sucking my energy and distracting me every day, and it's really tough.
It is, and it's hard to get stuff done. I have all these goals too, and to write a metabolic efficiency free book for my website, and then talk about chronic stress and life is not a race and all this stuff. But then you end up spending your time that you have allotted 2 hours, 3 hours at a time to work, and then you're just responding to emails. So it's hard to get that focus, not to multitask, and to be doing one thing at a time. But the one thing I want to start with is the philosophy of more is better. And I think that's what we've talked before in other episodes about chronic stress, fatigue, burnout for anyone, athletes of all levels, even if you just go for a walk every day, you're an athlete of some type. But I think, you wrote a book on keto reset and you're writing a new book, and I'm finding all these people doing the fasting, intermittent fasting, doing keto, doing, low carb. More is better philosophy is for a lot of people that it is, when are you doing something too much? And when you draw the fine line, then that's a stressor for you in a different way. So have you found with your podcast and writing, people getting too obsessed with, anything like, the cold thermogenesis or eating keto or fasting too long, that it becomes a source of stress, or it's an addiction for people, addictive personalities, or that they don't know when to stop and have that right, healthy balance.
Yeah. Wow. There's, this is a slippery.
It's not a diet. So yeah. I forgot to say, that's not a diet or plan, just a lifestyle habit.
Yeah. No, this is a slippery slope, because on the other side of that that tunnel, that slope, is the person who can engage in endless rationalizations, and justifications for not being focused and devoted and disciplined. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that the question you pose is like, yeah, can you overdo it and get orthorexic? That's that term we use a lot, which is an unhealthy fixation on doing things correctly, whether it's diet or whatever else. But it's mostly applied to, orthorexia in the dietary realm, where people freak out if they don't have their exact components of meals every day. So that's bad news. And those stress heads are pretty easy to identify walking around. But what about that person who is doing keto and it's awesome and it's great, except for tonight because my nephew's birthday at Chuck E. Cheese, and so I have some pizza. But I'm pretty much sort of kind of doing keto, and it's pretty much trying to go pretty well. You hear that type of mindset all the time, where you give people an inch and they'll take a mile. And I'm volunteering myself. I'm raising my hand, I was one of those guys, as we talked about offline. I've been experimenting all over the spectrum here with, strict keto when we were working on the book, and I was pricking my finger every single day and charting my blood ketones, and everything was tightly regulated in the name of R&D for the book. And then I went into a different phase, inspired by our friends at Nourish, Balance, Thrive, Dr. Tommy Wood and Chris Kelly, suggesting that, hey, if you're an old dude and you're still trying to be a freaky athletic, performer, like I have high ambitious athletic goals, even though I'm 54 years old. So I'm putting together a lot of to-do list items, and then going into this keto thing where I'm not eating that many calories. And the speculation there was like, hey, maybe you should just try to consume more healthy, nutritious calories to help fuel your performance and recovery. So I said, okay, let me try that. And I went crazy. And
one extreme to the other.
Yeah. I mean, I love dark chocolate, right? So now instead of like 4 squares or whatever, I'd have like the entire bar every day. And so that starts to kick into habit forming. And then I would enjoy these evening popcorn binges, just celebrating life and pouring the butter and the lemon infused olive oil on there and the salt, and instead or a celebration of something fun to say we did when we went out to the movies and I snuck my own popcorn in because movie popcorn sucks. That was starting to turn into a habit. And I realized just, my health wasn't getting destroyed by this. I probably put on some excess body fat, but I'm not in that category where I'm worried about that stuff. But I realized just overall the diminished discipline, because I didn't have a whole bunch of rules and restrictions in place, things start to get away from you. So I was trying to creep back into balance and doing things like, at the time of this recording, I'm in a phase where I'm not eating anything until 12 noon because I don't need to. I like to bank those fasted hours. I'm probably doing good with making ketones and all that stuff, but there's no other reason except for to establish something in my daily routine that has an element of discipline and focus, just like my morning chest freezer cold plunge, which I've talked about on my own podcast a lot and written about. And, you get the hormonal benefits of jumping in cold water and that kind of fun stuff. But I also like to be that guy in the world where I can tell you on the podcast and all the listeners that every single morning I jump into a tub of cold water, 34 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. I do 20 breath cycles in there. It takes 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. And I feel great because I'm, overcoming the resistance to jumping into cold water and just into a habit formation that arguably or hopefully will carry over into my disciplined use of my email inbox. I'm still trying to leverage that cold tub personality attribute into all the other areas, even going into, relationships, dealing with your emotions, managing your emotions, things like that are important to have a healthy, happy, balanced life. And man, when you're like Mr. Big in the workplace, and so you're the boss guy and you're able to bark at people or express your frustrations, and everyone scurries back to their desks and works harder for 2 hours, those kind of personality attributes don't serve you in general life, but we're able to kind of play these things out because we can, and that's not necessarily, we got to turn the corner and have that perfect balance between motivation, discipline, focus, and also being happy and playful and carefree. So help us, Debbie Potts, help.
Well, I think, what I hear a lot about and read in these Facebook group pages, is I've talked a little bit on my podcast, is that these people are trying hard to change what they're eating to burn fat and lose weight. And they hear these success stories from someone else that, I did 20 carbs and a day and lost 100 pounds and I did this and that. And there's these people that struggle to lose weight. And what we're starting to talk about is in nutritional therapy, for starters, we say the main goal is to eat the right amount of macronutrients, carbs, fat, and protein of real nutrient-dense whole foods, not processed garbage, and have your blood sugar balanced. And as you said, you measured your ketones, your blood sugar when you're writing your Keto Reset book. But I think so many people don't realize that there's other factors that influence balancing your blood sugar. So if you're not getting results and you're eating, you're balancing your carbs and protein, but your blood sugar is still high, you're not burning fat, maybe you still feel fat and even gaining weight, what are some other triggers that are going to influence our ability to lose weight?
Chill the F out is a big one. Right? Yeah. I mean, we know you're an expert in the stress response and all the research from Hans Selye, the father of modern stress research. We can make our own blood sugar anytime we want. And just, get into, anyone can reference, like, say, a time of great personal crisis where you're in the hospital for 11 days straight with a family member, touch and go, or whatever's going on, where you're going through a painful breakup, separation, traumatic workplace event, and you're kind of running on fumes for, might be 3 weeks straight or 6 weeks straight, and you wake up and your hands are shaking, you're not hungry, you're too jittery to even think about a meal. You go for hours and hours, and you're just running literally on fumes, on stress hormones in the bloodstream. And so that's the gluconeogenesis process, the fight or flight mechanism, where you're converting lean muscle tissue into glucose to fuel your dietary needs. And I think a lot of people are unfortunately kicking into the gluconeogenesis fight or flight stimulation when they try to go keto, because they're not fully prepared to transition over to low-carb lifestyle. They haven't done the proper necessary preparatory work. And so all of a sudden they cut the carbs out of their diet. Their brain is starving for their usual fuel source. Their muscles are starving for their usual fuel source, that is dietary carbs. And so the body kicks into emergency mode. Because remember, we're trying to survive through, human evolution. And when we don't have enough food, and we feel a little bit tired and cranky, unfocused afternoon blues, that is a life or death emergency to our human genetic response, right? The human does not like to run out of energy when they're getting chased by predator or they're trying to find their next meal. You have to be kicking into alternative mechanisms. And the ketones is so wonderful that we can go and not have to eat carbs and still feel great. But you can't just jump into that magical Alice in Wonderland without departing from carbohydrate dependency eating habits and lifestyle patterns. And so that's the big one there.
So how do you suggest people transition into eating more low carb if they're coming from a standard American diet, SAD diet, eating mostly carbs? What have you found works best for your clients and writing?
Well, I think the first thing to do would be to look at that holistic approach, like Debbie Potts says. So instead of a dietary question where you're getting out your app and you're cutting back your carbs by 20 grams a week for the first 3 weeks and then do 30 grams. I mean, people actually traffic in that bullshit where they're trying to train the human like a robot to do something and ignore all these other variables. Yeah. So the first thing we have to do is sit down and say, how can I lower the stress level overall in my life so that I can contemplate a lifestyle transformation. Because if you're too stressed, too busy, you don't have enough time to even think about yourself or your health, it's not going to work. So we got to kind of look at the triage situation here when we come into the emergency room and present as a person who's overstressed, overworked, emotionally unhealthy. All these things should probably be tackled before we, just jump right into a magical diet cleanup. Now, that said, maybe the first step is to cut that shit out of your diet. And then maybe your life will get better overall. Your relationship will get better. Your commute will get better, whatever. So maybe things can happen all at once. But I like to focus on the attitude, making sure you're in the right frame of mind, you're smiling, and you're about to plunge into dietary and lifestyle transformation rather than, oh no, here comes my boot camp. I'm dreading the first of the month because I got this crazy stress thing.
Well, exactly. And I think the stressors are part of what I like to do in a 5-day jumpstart challenge, which I rather do it backwards and do the 30-day challenge, finish with a 5-day jumpstart, but is working on, okay, let's start working. We're just going to go to sleep. Get ready at 9 o'clock, or I get ready at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, because to get your 7-9 hours of sleep for me is essential for my performance in optimizing my productivity. I have to have my sleep, and to be a happy, energetic person, I need to get to bed earlier for my wake-up call. I get up around 5. That sleep is essential. And if I could sleep in, I'd wake up at 6:30 is my sleeping in. But I think that, and then identifying your stressors, as you're saying, like driving to work or people at work or your family, your life, and working on that. But nutritionally, I think so many people, and I wrote this, I realized all this, my life is not a race. I kind of figured this out on my own. And now I realized it's metabolic efficiency and teaching your body to burn fat, intermittent fasting, and all of that. We were trained to eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, right? So to get people to get off that high carb diet, do you find intermittent fasting a good way to start, a 12-hour overnight fast and work towards 16 hours? Or because we're used to waking up and eating that high carb breakfast, and we're thinking we have to get the metabolism going. We got to eat a banana and yogurt and orange juice.
Yeah, you sure as heck should give your digestive system a break for at least 12 hours a day. And that's Dr. Panda's research, and this has now become a prominent health matter for everyone. And if you can't last 12 hours, or you're indiscriminately using your digestive system for longer than that, it's going to profoundly predict excess body fat accumulation. It's just that's what the research with the mice are showing, is just limiting your eating window is going to be your great first step to go, okay, well, if I finish eating at 8 p.m., I'm not going to eat anything till 8 a.m. minimum, and then strive to extend beyond that as a sign of improved metabolic flexibility. But the key that we always talk about with fasting is that we want it to be comfortable and feel natural at all times. So you want to feel like you're functioning at peak cognitive and physical energy levels without food. And if you start to experience a decline in energy or brain fog or any of those things, or true sensations of hunger, go and eat something healthy and nutritious. Don't force it, because if you're ill prepared, you're just going to kick into the fight or flight response if you deny yourself food when you really are hungry. Now you asked me sort of like a starting point question. Yeah. And I just want to jump in here in case the listener's kind of experienced with this stuff and is trying to drop excess body fat and hit a plateau. Once you get metabolically flexible, once you get good at burning fat and not overly reliant upon regular high carb meals as your main source of energy, then you can kind of tiptoe out to the lines and put yourself through a little bit of metabolic challenge to kickstart body fat. So that's like working through a little bit of hunger sensation that you experience at 11 a.m. and waiting until 12 to have that delicious salad. But I think that part's kind of underrated, and I'm kind of psyched about this guy, William Shufelt. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's carnivoreshredding.com, where he's got this really focused plan to get down to 3.7 body fat like him. And you can go look at his body. He's an actor and a model, a young guy, and he's looking like a lot of people want to look. He says a lot of people want to look like a six-pack. They just don't admit it. They say, I want to be healthy and feel great. It's like, no, man, they want the six-pack. And he said that on my show, and I'm like, you know what, dude, you got a point there, because a lot of people are afraid to step up there and say, I want to look freaking awesome, man. How do I do it? And the way you do it was more focus and intentionality, whereby you don't just please yourself with every indulgence that you're allowed to have now in modern life, because we can all go get food anytime, any place. But when you kind of work through with some discipline and say, this is my goal, this is what I want to do, I want to transform my body, you got to get some ass-kicking mindset in there. We have to sprinkle that in. So that's the other side of the coin. But I do want to say first, don't suffer, don't struggle, don't have this be this negative, horrible thing that you're trying to transform your diet. We want to make sure it's smooth and comfortable. And then as you get better and better and better, we kind of up our game a little bit, until the point where, oh my gosh, I mean, you know what the Tour de France cyclists do in the month of June, not all year, but in the month of June, they go on 5, 6, 7-hour training rides in the mountains. They come home and they frickin' starve themselves for 60 to 120 minutes. After burning calories for 7 hours, they walk in the door and they drink water, or they drink a freaking caffeine so that they, they don't collapse on the couch. But in that magic time window is when they get down from 6.6% body fat to 5.9% body fat, and they look like skeletons on the starting line of the Tour de France, knowing that when you go in the mountains and you drop 1 kilogram of body weight, that's the difference between you winning the thing or becoming the 7th place award winner. Same with those folks at the Ironman who are trying to go under 8 hours now, right? Or the females going under 9 hours. This is, the ultimate level of peak performance is to shave those edges off. That's not relevant to too many people, but if you're listening and you're carrying an extra 7 pounds of excess body fat that you've been carrying for a couple years, even though you're training hard and working hard, look, let's get this handled with a little more intentional approach and turning up the dial a little bit on the the commitment to your goals.
Mm-hmm. So I started writing this ebook for metabolic efficiency for becoming the low carb athlete fat burning machine, and pulled out my book, The Art and Science of the Low Carb Performance book, by the guys that started all this. Pretty much, Volek and Finney were way ahead of us in all this. And I read this years ago. It's 2012, this book, and I've just highlighted it and put all these sticky notes in it because there's so much information in there. But going back to what you're saying, kind of that transition period into becoming metabolically efficient fat burning machine, then you become more metabolically flexible, where you can be primarily a fat burner, but when in need, you can switch to that backup fuel plan, the carbohydrate storage, and then shift back to fat. But because of our incorrect teachings and marketing and political nutrition, we are trained to be sugar burners, not fat burners, and that's not natural. So becoming a fat burner, because of how we eat and our lifestyle habits, including reducing stress, will teach us how to burn fat. Then when we need to switch to fuel tank to carbohydrates in those emergency situations, we can, or to that, finish line. But I'm finding the ability to do that with intermittent fasting is the next kind of area I keep hearing more about, is that time-restricted eating. We're talking about Dr. Panda. If you haven't read that book, it's amazing. Circadian Code. It's a must-read. Did you read that, or just...
No, I don't read.
Just listen to podcasts.
I just write. I can't read if I'm writing books. Then you get distracted and then you start reading too much.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to be great for my book. Oh, so is this. Oh, so is this. Let me read some more. So I'm sort of being wise guy, but when I'm working on a book, just in case anyone's curious, I have to discipline myself against reading, because reading's relaxing and enjoyable and writing's torture. So anyway.
Is it
maybe I'll read it. Maybe I'll read it in my free time when I'm not writing books.
Well, he has a book that talks about that time-restricted eating, which I still haven't figured out. Intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, isn't it kind of the same? So you're eating an 8-hour window, in a 8 to 5 hour window. So the rest of the time, your body's fasting, helping digest the food, which I think most people don't do. Is a different topic as well, that we don't digest and absorb our food, which leads to all these health problems as well as to chronic stress. But when you are eating, so people that are doing fasting, are they doing good food choices? So I know a lot of people are doing 24-hour fast, eat one meal a day. So every 24 hours they're having that meal, or they're doing the 16-8, eating in that 8-hour window. But do you go eat your popcorn and tortilla chips and sit and eat whatever you want because I'm going to digest and recover and do all that the rest of the time? So it's interesting because even in his research study, Dr. Panda's book says you can eat the same amount, which don't, guys do this, but you can eat whatever you eat in that 16 hours that you used to eat, you can eat in an 8-hour window and actually not have the weight gain that you would if you ate that over 16 hours.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't want to live my life by science either. So whether that's true or not, I think now you're opening up we're taking baby steps here. So first, we're going to be mindful that we don't want our digestive system to work for more than 12 hours. Outside that. So that's great. And then it's like, what are you eating? Well, why don't you get rid of the crap as your next step? And to make it really simple for the listener, it's the refined grains, sugar, sweetened beverages, and high polyunsaturated vegetable oils. So those three big offenders, grains, sugars, and bad oils, are now believed to represent at least 2/3 of the calories in the modern diet. So 2/3 of our food is complete garbage that's entirely unfamiliar to our genetic experience and our, out of the hunter-gatherer list of things. But that's where we get most of our calories. So if you can take a step right now, whoever's listening, to say, all right, this stuff is it's toxic. It's steadily killing us. We're sick of the pain and suffering that we're seeing around us in modern life, where our family, friends, relatives, and ourselves are, succumbing to these horrible diseases that shouldn't exist at all. Type 2 diabetes. Dr. Doug McGuff, Body by Science, and also co-author of Primal Prescription. He cites data in there with his co-author, Robert Murphy. This is Primal Prescription, that the continued escalation of cases of type 2 diabetes, where now we have plenty of drugs and treatment protocols where we can keep these people alive for many, many years. If the rate continues at its current rate, the healthcare costs of caring for long-term type 2 diabetics is very expensive, will bankrupt the U.S. Treasury by the year 2060. So our entire wealth as a nation, the richest nation on the planet, will be washed out by caring for type 2 diabetics, which is almost entirely caused by dietary habits, right? Type 1 diabetics issues, they don't make insulin. Type 2, they call it type 2 because it comes from diet. And in 30 days of dietary restriction, you can go from category pre-diabetic or category type 2 diabetic into the safe zone just by cutting out all the massive influx of carbs into your face 3 times a day, 5 times a day, whatever. So this is an urgent matter if you want to avoid long, painful, suffering demise into death, is to get yourself in the healthy zone with your blood values and your dietary habits. So it's pretty simple. Yeah.
So that kind of gave me thoughts too. I wrote down some notes, but the toxins in the food that people are eating. So I know a lot of people are doing the keto low carb, but there's this thing I kept reading about, dirty keto and clean keto. I'm like, I disagree that it's beneficial, but then it's like, all right, is it better than eating the garbage crap? So what's your thought on dirty keto? If you don't know, is just eating whatever fat, protein sources they are, and it could be processed. Ideally we have clean grass-fed meats and organic vegetables and free-range chicken and eggs and all that, wild caught fish. So dirty keto is eating lots of toxins. So what's your take on that with dirty keto and toxic food?
I don't know. Would you rather get bashed in the head with a baseball bat or stabbed in the abdomen with a sharp knife? It's like, really, answer me that question, and then we'll talk about. It's very humorous. I'm glad you brought it up because it's a nice talking point where, this is how culture goes, I guess, is people are, I don't know what they're doing, trying to manipulate your thinking And maybe there's some profit incentive to tout something like this. You're going to get a lot of people talking about it, reading the articles, but it doesn't warrant any further attention except to laugh about it. And then by doing so, we can recalibrate and realize that there's all these factions and counterpoints and different opinions, and makes your head spin, especially the deeper you get into it. And when we want to take a few steps back and go, hey, we should eat clean, healthy, natural, wholesome food that comes from the earth or from an animal if you're inclined, but making sure to choose the highest quality. We know how to do that with our sourcing the right animals. I have a sponsor on the podcast called Wild Idea Buffalo, and they communicate some statistics where there's like 40 million cattle are slaughtered every year for our wonderful food supply in America. And these are in these giant feedlots, slaughterhouses where the animal is treated poorly and full of stress hormones right before their life is over. And so the meat reflects that. All hunters know that. Did you know? I didn't know this, but a hunter that was going out deer hunting and gets an unclean shot and wounds the deer, and the deer's still running and trying to get away, they will discard that. They cannot eat that meat. Because of the stress hormones circulating in the bloodstream of the deer, the meat tastes terrible. Oh. But all 40 million cattle that are getting slaughtered are not having a good time getting crowded into those slaughterhouses. Yeah. So they're full of stress hormones. But what they do is they flavor the meat with strong, powerful chemicals, and therefore the meat tastes toxic, as we're accustomed to. It tastes fine because it's been chemically flavored. And the comparison, the buffalo, I think it's 60,000 buffalo a year are harvested. They're harvested in a humane manner out there on the open range where they spend their entire life. And that's just a commercial message from a buffalo manufacturer, but it's interesting to note the difference in quality if you're going and getting sort of an off mass-produced item like ground lamb is delicious, the ground buffalo, the buffalo steaks, the grass-fed steaks, the things that make a huge difference. Even eggs. If you want to tiptoe into this, go to the store and buy some pastured eggs instead of the regular eggs. And when you crack it and you see the yolk, and it's bright orange and strong and vibrant, and that's the beta carotene from the chicken's diet, where it was out there eating worms and bugs and grass rather than chicken feed. And it tastes so much different and so much better. And the same with my, it's called Lone Mountain Wagyu. I get the grass-fed ground Wagyu beef. And if you just cook a hamburger with no flavoring, nothing on it, just cook it and eat it, it's like no other hamburger you've ever tasted, because most of our hamburger is so mass-produced and chemically altered that it doesn't have the same flavor intensity. So you start getting into the aspect of healthy eating and choosing healthy foods and enjoying the meal times. I'm not worried about your carb count until way down the line where we say, okay, what about these other insights about getting down into different zones and kickstarting body fat? But first we have to take those baby steps. And who's great about this is your neighbors there, Nourish, Balance, Thrive. Dr. Tommy Wood lives just up the road. He says, don't even think about dropping excess body fat until you're metabolically healthy. Yeah. Don't even think about a caloric deficit. A caloric deficit is a stressor. It's a wonderful stressor because you're trying to cut down from 20% body fat to 12, and 12 is healthier over the long term and all that. But you can't stress yourself in that manner if you have leaky gut or thyroid dysfunction or adrenal dysfunction. And you know all about that, where you're under stress and then you go stress yourself further with a workout. Oh, it's just an easy workout. I'm just pedaling an easy 40 on flats today. Oh, you know what? That's a highly stressful event to your body, which is trashed right now. So the only choice you have is a 30-minute yoga class, not 60 because that's too stressful, or a 30-minute walk at a slow pace, not a medium pace. Everything has to be recalibrated, right?
Yep. But this is why I think it's a personalized nutrition exercise program and health and wellness, that it's not one program fits all. And that's the whole nutrition part, lifestyle. Everyone's life is different. Your genetics are different. I did DNA fit coaching program, and it's just fascinating to put all this information. If you go to 23andMe, and I wrote some blogs about this and podcast, The Real Thoughts Debbie Potts Show, about how you can upload that raw data and just put everything together and get the lab testing, get where you're at with symptoms and your health concerns, and really work with you as a bio individual instead of listening to what everyone else in this Facebook group page which that Keto for Beginners group has 985,000 people in the group. And it's amazing to read the stuff, but there'll be like one question or comment and there'll be hundreds of responses to it. And it's amazing. But I think people get caught up that, you know what, I'm not the same as them. My lifestyle is different. My work schedule, my family life, my stress levels, my activity level, my genetics. So I think everyone, to summarize our talk today, is that take baby steps. Everyone's different. We talked about eating clean and just healing yourself from the inside out and working on, a 12-hour fast and build that up. What else did we talk about? Whatever, kind of summarize all of our
Man, we got on so many tangents.
Clean.
Be comfortable with your transition. Make it feel good. Don't go hungry and cranky on us. Just kind of work at whatever pace feels comfortable, and then up the ante as you get better and better.
Yeah, I think identifying your stressors, but not doing something, a new transition, new lifestyle too quickly, that is another source of stressor, as you're saying, is that switching over from this high carb to low carb diet and fasting too long, that you're actually creating a stress response system in your body. But that is so individual and everyone responds differently. So, it's working with a coach or someone that can help guide you through it and work with your ups and downs and find out what is the right Goldilocks effect for you to find that homeostasis and get your body to be a fat burning, not sugar burning machine, but lifestyle. But I want to have you back on the show again and talk more about what I'm trying to write about myself and doing research is on the mitochondrial health, because Ari of Energy Blueprint put together some great information, and I'm trying to interpret it all and put together is just the importance of mitochondrial and our cell health, because that's, for me personally, the last 6 months, I started to transform more myself, working at a cellular level with supplements and as well as just changing what I'm doing. But I think that's another topic to go into and research is, okay, your energy levels of chronic stressors, but are you depleting the energy level of your cell health and having what he says, like the energy mode versus, cell defense mode versus energy mode, and having that balance and resiliency of the two. And it totally makes sense to me as an athlete and someone that is still training a lot and enjoys exercising, but has our chronic stress environment that we have challenging us all the time to focus and stay, doing multitasking. But the powerful mitochondrial is how we want to optimize our health as well. A stress response.
Very well said.
Well said. So we'll wrap it up, but anything else you want to put in your projects and what you're up to this year? Because I know you're really doing a lot with getting over yourself.
Oh, thanks, Debbie. Yeah, go listen to my show. It's really fun, and I broaden the topic out from, I've been talking about diet and athletic training for many years on the Primal Blueprint podcast, and so this Get Over Yourself show, as you can tell by the title, I'm trying to have fun out there. I'm trying to get over myself, talk about a relaxed, healthy, balanced approach to leading a great life. So we talk about health, fitness, diet, exercise, peak performance, happiness, relationships, longevity, and some of the great shows that I get the most feedback on are just how to be healthy in your relationships. I talked to John Gray, the best-selling relationship author of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and he had some great tips about making the magic work with your romantic partner forever and ever, for years and years. And so throwing those overlays into the mechanics of healthy eating and not training too hard, that was my goal, is to kind of get people a broad and entertaining approach to healthy living that doesn't leave anything out. Same thing you're doing with the holistic athlete. It's great stuff.
Well, it's like our podcast originally being Fit, Fat, Fast. It's kind of like primal nutrition. You kind of get stuck in just to one area that, okay, eat more fat, go low carb, be metabolic efficiency. And there's so much more.
You said it all in the title. I don't even have to listen to the show.
Yeah.
There it is.
I know. So now, we're both realizing that there's missing areas out there that we are not hearing on podcasts, talking about more fun and laughter and relationships, because as we said earlier, one of the biggest things to being healthy is even that aging, what's the blue study? The blue whatever.
Zones.
The what?
Blue zones.
Blue zones. Yeah. Just the importance of community friendships and laughter and being active. So that's good. We see a trend. That's what's missing out there. So keep it up. And thanks for everything you're doing. And are you going to any conferences this year? Because I know there's like one every couple weeks now.
I try not to, but I'm going down to Paleo FX. That's a popular one. And I try to again stay focused and do my own thing. And so when I'm away from the control tower, it's like a huge ask for me to go do something besides type on my keyboard. But what was cool is I turned down my opportunity to go there probably 7 years in a row, just always too busy or whatever excuse I made. But when I finally went and saw this huge attended event in Austin, Texas, which is a great centerpiece town for, transforming culture, and everybody there seems to be healthy and fit and outdoors and athletic. It was great because you get that sense of community when you have live in-person interaction that's so different from just cranking through all your favorite podcasts and all that. So I think we need both, and enjoy going back there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I will see you there. And everyone, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, The Whole Athlete, The Holistic Athlete. And I'll have Brad back on the show to dive more into his research and what he's learning, and talk about how we can really all work together to help transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.